Good morning, everyone. I'm Nathan. I'm going to be holding down the fort this week, so great to see everybody. We were just talking before we hopped on. We'll have Llama Roger the next 2 weeks, so that's exciting. I'm looking forward to that. So I thought I might start off with just a brief chat of sorts, and then we'll get into a meditation here this morning, but maybe weave a couple things. But first, I'm going to steal something Leslie had sent and shared from a Milarepa passage that I've been reading over and thinking on, and probably read the whole thing at some point, but I'm kind of just jumping ahead to the last line of this as just a kicking off point. But it says, for wisdom, nothing to do other than know directly how things are. And I like that line, and there's, of course, a lot in that line, but just recognizing things the way they are. It's a good instruction for the meditation, but of course it's a good instruction for not meditation, for the rest of our time that isn't dedicated to a formal practice. And I've been really thinking on it this week in particular. I was chatting with Doria and Menla before we hopped on, but it's back to school season here for us. So my kids are back in school next week, and I'm back in school. It's really an invitation, this period of time I've found, to experience the full range of emotions one can have. And everything sort of is a perfect duality to it, right? So anything that you're excited about, there's also a flip side of, well, yeah, but, right? So, it's been a great summer. Having the kids home is fun. We get to spend a lot of time with them, but getting them back into a structured environment that they're both looking forward to going to is, exciting as well. We're looking forward to that. But also then the logistics complicate quite a bit, right? So we're quite a bit busier during the school year in certain ways. It's sort of a yo-yo of these things. And, one thing that struck me is there are these periods of transition, and this is kind of a fun one, by the way. It's back to school stuff. Some transitions and let's say maybe disruptive things are a little less fun, but there are these times where we do kind of get bombarded with a range of reactions to whatever's going on. And at least for me, what I've been kind of reflecting on is, if to the extent I can kind of recognize these things coming, it's good to build in a lot of little breaks and little times just to take some time to process things, because in the midst of dealing with whatever comes up, maybe as I say, the human mind, maybe my mind, is really good at kind of stiff-arming certain things and saying, no, I've got to take care of this and this first. And there isn't necessarily a time to circle back and say, all right, there's some things that maybe I didn't fully think through, process, feel through. In other words, to know directly how things are, going back to this Milarepa, it's more like it gets filtered through this narrative of how I think things need to be, or whatever mode I think I'm in. And so I think that's always the case. You know what I mean? I don't think it's just these periods of transition, but it's usually, it bites me during these more, like disruptive times, that things stick in a little bit more. And then I'm reflecting like, okay, getting a little annoyed. I found that when I reflect, I'm a little bit quick to compare myself to Job over fairly minor grievances, right? So I'm like, why am I being challenged with all of this? Right? So whenever I get into that mode, I can tell it's a time where I've been a little bit neglecting taking the time to process. And so that's one thing I've been just thinking on and sharing, just in the possibility it's helpful to you all too. And also, it reminds me of how helpful having this group is, and having some regular time that we set aside to practice is, because that is kind of this built-in time, right? That helps give us some structure so we don't go too long and just kind of get stuck in the usual habit, the usual pattern of how we maybe handle things, especially in ways that maybe aren't as helpful or skillful as we would like. And so really having this time to pause, where we're kind of setting aside the usual routine and the usual habit, has been so helpful to me, and to be able to do it as a group is so incredible as well. I often think about when I was first starting off meditating, and I was thinking of more things to do, and came across Lama's material and Thich Nhat Hanh and others, and even sort of the simple Buddhist refuge is take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And somehow the Sangha piece even though it's right there, the community piece didn't always land with me. So I lone wolfed it for years, and then I was like, hey, maybe the community piece isn't just it's not just filler in these lines. So I'm so grateful for all of you in this community, and Chin Foundation, Menla Dory for coordinating this. So awesome. So with that, let's ring a bell, say a little prayer, see what happens. May all beings possess happiness and the inner causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the inner causes of suffering. May all beings remain undivided from the sacred joy which is free from suffering. May all beings come to rest in great peace and equanimity, beyond attachment and aversion to friends, enemies, or strangers. Let me just take some time to settle in and arrive here. Grab a drink, a stretch, a shake. Finding a position that works for us. Any position will do, just making ourselves comfortable. Feel free to shake it loose at any point. You don't have to wait for me to call for a break. Break it up into little sessions, move around as you need. And maybe just kind of starting off with the reminder that this is a time that we can take a break from our usual habits, preoccupations. At least for now, there's nothing for us to do, nothing to figure out. And set aside any checklist we have. Giving ourselves this time to just be. Take a break from overdoing, from overthinking, planning, analyzing. And again, to kind of jump back into this last line from this Milarepa passage, for wisdom, nothing to do other than know directly how things are. So direct knowing, not necessarily, filtering things through the analytical mind or trying to label everything. Just a direct experiencing, a full experiencing, taking in whatever is there. Just very present, awake, aware, attentive. Just noticing whatever's going on in your experience, inner or outer. Just tuning in. There's no need to block out any experience, including thoughts. Also, no need to hold on to anything. Just letting things come, letting things go. Allowing ourselves to just be however we are, allowing things to be. So giving up any effort to try to control our experience in any way. And again, if you're like me and you get the inner objection raiser, sometimes I add on the, at least for now, right? Just at least for this time we've set aside, taking a break from our usual habits and preoccupations, just letting things be. And just continuing to allow ourselves to settle, allow our thoughts to settle. I'm going to jump to the second to the last line from this Milarepa passage, which says, "For meditative stability, nothing to do other than rest in presence." And in general, I think these last two lines are kind of an incredible summary of a lot of instruction you might read if you're a reader and you're into reading up on Dzogchen and other similar type approaches. But it's kind of see things as they are, see things clearly, and then the question is kind of like, then what? Stabilize that recognition. How? By resting. Sort of paradoxical, right? Not by doing something, by resting in presence, by resting in the recognition of things as they are. So fairly straightforward, not always the easiest to maybe maintain, but that's basically it. So if at any point you feel distracted, it's enough just to tune back into whatever's coming up, whatever's there, whatever you're experiencing it fully. And then to kind of maintain that stability, nothing to do other than to, as this says, rest in presence, or rest in awareness, rest in the recognition of whatever arises. But the rest piece, of course, is key. So we can just relax, rest, take it easy. Allow ourselves to relax. Again, we'll have Lama Raja the next couple of weeks, and I always steal this from him, and it has always helped me, is relaxation is not something to do, something to allow. It's allowing ourselves to relax. Just taking it a breath at a time, one moment at a time. Awake, aware, attentive, natural. There's this invitation instruction from Milarepa that says for wisdom, nothing to do other than know directly how things are. There's many things I appreciate about this lineage and the teachers and the message, but one thing that's pretty consistent is it's very much a see for yourself. So sometimes it raises the question of, okay, know directly how things are. How are things? See for yourself. Tune in and see how things are. As luck would have it, there are some, writings and discussions and thinking about how things are and describing how things are. And sometimes that can be helpful, maybe to have words to think about our experience and help us talk about it and share. But also, in another way, there's really no substitute for directly knowing. Nothing maybe quite as confidence building or stabilizing as really directly experiencing it for ourselves. So again, there are lots of observations, let's say maybe from natural meditation, that thoughts arise on their own and dissolve in their own. So there's nothing we need to do. Self-liberating. That's something we can just kind of check into. Just experience how things are. Notice what's going on in our experience. We don't need to force thoughts to come up. Just recognize them as they do and see if it isn't maybe the case. They arise and dissolve on their own, like waves in the ocean, rising and falling. I kind of single out thoughts, but really true of whatever arises, whatever comes up. Just letting things come and letting them go. And effortlessness and ease, just resting, relaxing. Again, it's enough just to rest in presence, as the Milarepa passage says. It's resting in the recognition of whatever arises. And if you feel distracted at any point, it's enough just to return to what it is we're doing. Just checking in to see what's going on in your experience. And if you are feeling very aware, tuned in, awake, attentive, you're wondering what comes next, again, this Milarepa line says, for meditative stability, nothing to do other than rest in presence. So we can take it easy. And if you'd like, join me in a break, grab a drink, a stretch. So whenever we're ready, just restart, keeping it fresh, taking it from the top. In whatever position is comfortable for us, just a natural body. Natural breath, just letting our breath come and go. Natural heart and mind, realm of thoughts and feelings, leaving it as it is. Continuing to relax and release and settle. Maybe just for a bit if you want, seeing if you can't relax and release a little bit more with each out breath. Each breath out, just letting go a little more. Loosening the grip of the story of whoever we think we are, whoever we think we're not. Loosening the grip of the whatever habits, conditioning, Again, just tuning in to how things are, maybe as opposed to how we want things to be, seeing things just exactly as they are, experiencing them for what they are, not maybe what we would want them to be or maybe what we're afraid they are, just seeing clearly and simply. Again, probably the knowing directly is the most, kind of helpful for us to really gain confidence and stabilize, but maybe just as a way of sharing some of the terminology that some folks share and different things they experience as they look at how things directly are. You may notice or be aware of some spaciousness, openness, stillness, calm. Maybe experience even through a physical spaciousness around you. And you might also recognize movement and activity, thoughts, sounds. Got a little bit of a thunderstorm going on here. Seeing little flickers of lightning and hearing the sounds, whatever's going on in your environment. And internally, thoughts and feelings. You might also notice there's that which recognizes stillness, that which recognizes movement, awareness. Milarepa line says rest in presence, present, just this present knowingness. And maybe a recognition that these different aspects are not separate. It's not really about movement or stillness, spaciousness or activity. These qualities are inseparable, similar to the awareness, the recognition, the present knowingness. just the invitation to see if we can't directly know, just to tune into that, experience that. No need to compartmentalize, to label, try to pick out the right term for whatever it is that's coming up on our experience, just a natural and easy experience, dynamic experience, not trying to hold on to whatever arises, changing, impermanent. Again, just trying to see things clearly, to know things directly. And once that's the case, seek stability, build confidence in that, stabilize it. There's nothing to do for that other than to just rest. Rest in presence, rest in awareness. And if you'd like, join me in another stretch break, drink break. There's a Dzogchen song I really like that the last line of it, I'm not going to remember exactly, but it's something to the effect of at first look many times for short duration and then gradually look for longer and longer, right? Which is sort of this something you see in many places, but better to do a lot of sort of quick duration check-ins than the longer. I was also reflecting, I think one of the first times I heard that instruction, the very first thought I had was, how much longer are we talking? Like, what's the goal? Give me a number. How many minutes are we talking here? So if you suffer from that kind of thing, the goal isn't necessarily some length of time, but more just this invitation to break it up, right? Sustain it for as long as you sustain it for, and then when you lose it, start fresh. It's just that simple, right? Don't need to get bent out of shape about that. So just as many times as we need to, just starting fresh, taking a look at what's going on in our experience, just trying to see it directly, see it clearly, know directly how things are. Seeing through, being through, and I don't know that I can do any better than just this last line of Milarepa's of know directly how things are. This direct experience, see for yourself invitation, I think is so important. But I also do often have these questions of what am I seeing through exactly? Well, just leave it, or sometimes maybe it is helpful to say, maybe seeing through this idea of a separate self, maybe seeing through this kind of illusion that maybe we try to make seem a little more solid and real, permanent than it is. Kind of see through more of the egoic selfing mode and into more of just the simply being mode. A letting go, a relaxing, a releasing, letting go of habits, cutting through the just habitual patterns and modes of being, and in favor of more of a natural, authentic, spontaneous. And just seeing for ourselves whatever's there moment to moment, staying very present, really tuning into our experience, experiencing it fully, feeling what's there to be felt. And then to sustain and stabilize, just resting, relaxing, releasing. Allowing, surrendering to what is. As we start to get a little bit closer to the end of this session, sometimes it can be helpful to start kind of gently and gradually thinking about what comes next. So we've had this time we've set aside, but meaning what are we going to do after meditation, moving forward into the day, kind of non-meditation. To that end, I was going to read the rest of this passage from Milarepa because it's got some pretty incredible advice. I just focus on these last two lines. So I find it really helpful for, say, meditation instruction, but for post-meditation instruction, it works equally well. So let me just read this. It says, for generosity, nothing to do other than stop fixating on self. For morality, nothing to do other than stop being dishonest. For patience, nothing to do other than not fear what is ultimately true. For effort, nothing to do other than practice continuously. For meditative stability, nothing to do other than rest in presence. For wisdom, nothing to do other than know directly how things are. And letting this marinate for a few weeks here, and many thanks to Leslie for sharing that. Like a lot of these things, a lot of these lines are fairly loaded. You could spend some time on a lot of these individual passages. May all beings everywhere, with whom we are inseparably interconnected, and who want and need the same as we do, may they be awakened, liberated, healed, fulfilled, safe, and free. May there be peace and harmony in this world, and an end to war and violence, poverty and hunger, inequality and oppression, greed and cruelty, pandemics, famine, droughts, earthquakes, all kinds of natural disasters. May all be free from fear, harm, danger, anxiety, and insecurity. May we better prepare ourselves for the natural calamities that beset us all. And may we all together complete the spiritual journey, one beloved community, one circle, one family, all the way home. I bow to all of you. Thank you so much for your practice. As mentioned earlier, Lama Roger, next 2 weeks, same time, same place. Excited for that. Many of you have probably seen Lama Roger. If you haven't, definitely worth checking in. And you can catch both weeks as a bonus because a lot of times he builds 1 week to the next on what he's doing there. So worth checking out. There is a lot of Lama content out there, podcasts on the dzogchen.org website. You can find a lot of these. Many of you are familiar with his books, obviously, but podcasts, talks, the YouTube channel has there's an incredible amount of old retreat information on YouTube. So I'm always checking that out and checking out things I didn't attend. Eric mentioned a Ram Dass, even chats with Ram Dass you can find out there, YouTubes with Lama and Ram Dass, all sorts of cool stuff. So just if you're interested, there's a lot out there to check out. But with that, we're approaching the top of the hour here, so let's call it a Sunday. Again, thank you all so much. Hope to see you all the next week for Lama Roger if you can make it, and be well in the meantime. Take care. Bye-bye.